Bounce lands are, in my opinion, the best lands in casual Commander. Bounce lands are lands that enter tapped and require us to return a land we control to our hand when we play them. In return, they tap for 2 mana. There are a variety of different bounce lands. The most common is the Ravnica-based cycle with 1 bounce land for each guild, but there are also 2 colorless ones in Guildless Commons and Arid Archway, and a monocolored cycle that unfortunately requires us to return an untapped basic instead of just any land. This last cycle is definitely the worst of the bunch, and I would only cautiously recommend them in mono or duo colored decks, as they can get stuck in your hand if you don't have an appropriate basic to bounce. Now, since they enter tapped, bounce lands are intrinsically slow, but they have some major benefits that make them well suited for Commander, and as a result, quite a bit more powerful than other alternatives. The most important aspect of any deck's early game plan always has to be hitting every single land drop. Everybody knows that early ramp is strong in Commander, but all the ramp in the world is worthless if you're not playing lands. Every missed land drop is a rampant growth undone, an arcane signet unplayed. Despite that, many decks, including precons, don't contain enough lands. Just this Friday, I met an entirely new player that was using the Caesar Fallout precon, and in every game, he was missing land drops and wasn't really able to play. Later that evening, we talked a bit and had a look at his land count together, and it turns out this precon only plays 36 lands, which is not enough. I then browsed through some of the other precons, and their land counts are honestly quite catastrophic at some points. The Explorers of the Deep, a Simic deck based around the Explore mechanic, only plays 36 lands, and the Simone precon, a landfall deck, only has 38. The Simone deck is still very powerful, so I wonder if they deliberately kept that land count low to limit how strong she is? I don't know, it's a very strange choice. I personally view 38 as the bare minimum for an average deck, but usually play 40, which is mathematically supported by Frank Karsten's analysis of the subject matter. A big part of the problem here is the cyclical nature of Commander deck building advice, specifically EDH-Rec. Players build lacking decks, either through a lack of skill or because they're just feeling some stuff out, which are then used as the dataset for recommendations for new decks that have the same flaws. I saw this article about a 6 deck on EDH-Rec that included a deck list with 37 lands, which is truly unhinged for a commander that turns lands into card draw and castable spells. But I don't mean to dismiss the impulse to play as few lands as possible. Put simply, the other parts of our deck are much more fun and exciting. This is where bounce lands come in. Returning a land to our hand gives us a land we can play later. In effect, it's a card draw. A very specific card draw, one that can only be a land, but that still helps us ensure that we are hitting our land drops, even if we acted a bit irresponsibly during deck building. If we have an Azorius Chancery or Simic Growth Chamber, then a 2-land opening hand becomes somewhat reasonable, although still not ideal. It would be ideal though if you left a like on the video. Thanks! Returning a land to our hand also has some additional benefits. Cards like Explore or Walking Atlas, cards that give us additional land drops, work incredibly well with bounce lands, as these kinds of effects tend to be limited by how many lands we have in hand. But bounce lands can increase that amount without the need for additional card draw. They also enable us to use catch-up ramp creatures like Cartographer's Hawk or Claim Jumper to actively gain a mana lead by reducing our land count without reducing our mana. Reducing our land count is actually a very beneficial social tool when playing Commander. A player that only has 5 lands in play simply doesn't look as intimidating as one with 8. And when choosing their targets, players are often inclined to pick the opponent that has the most visually threatening board. Bounce lands play into this by obscuring our resources, implicitly guiding attention away from us. This is the core reason why I consider the life gain land cycle the worst lands in Commander. These are very straightforward. They are lands that enter tapped, tap for 2 colors, and gain you 1 life on ETB. At first glance, these may seem alright, Better than a tap land without an effect, that's for sure. But the life gain they give us is a visible advantage. Life totals are usually clearly presented in the center of the table. And if one player is at 41 life and there are no other differentiating factors, then that's the player that's getting attacked. Most of the time, this isn't going to be a lot of damage, as we get hit by a spirited companion to even out the life totals. In that case, the land was no better than a guild gate, effectively going neutral on life total. But as soon as somebody bonks us for 2 or 3 damage, it's actually been net negative, and occasionally games end up in stalemates for a while. And then, our Bloodfell case might result in us taking 10, 15 damage, purely because we have a visible advantage over the other players, no matter how minor. Alex of Salubrious Snail fame made a video a while ago about small bean syndrome in Commander. The idea being that a very effective way of moving towards victory in a Commander game is to make yourself look weak and insignificant, which is often accompanied by political language that expresses this. Now, I personally don't like pretending to be a small bean. My general attitude is to tell people to do what they're gonna do, and if that means they will hit me, then hit me. If you think I'm dangerous, kill me. But that doesn't mean I don't agree with this on a strategic level. Presenting a weak board state is an effective approach, and often redirects attention to other players. This is also because many players feel bad when attacking the player that's behind on life totals, and this is something that black decks often utilize effectively. They use their life as a resource and then complain about getting attacked because they have so much less life than everybody else. Don't believe their propaganda, they are liars. Although admittedly, I like using this a little bit too by just intentionally taking some hits in the early game so that I have less life than everybody else by the time the stronger creatures come out. If there was a tapped 2-color land that dealt 1 damage to me when it entered, I would legitimately consider playing it, because it would help reduce my visible threat level in the early game. Sacrificing 1 life to not get hit for 3 damage seems like a good deal to me. I'm describing fetch and shock lands, aren't I? Well, I'm not here to tell you that fetch and shock lands somehow aren't good. They are very powerful, and if you believe that their speed and effective color fixing makes them the strongest lands in Commander, I'm not going to disagree with you. I think those are valid points to make. But I'm personally not that worried about having a fast mana base in Commander. I think it's obvious by now that I don't mind tap lands, and that's just because of the slower nature of the game. It's not that unusual that I would find myself with an extra mana anyways, so I time my tap lands for those moments. This is especially pronounced because of the high amount of ramp in the format. A couple tap lands here or there just aren't a big problem. Especially not if other players are missing land drops because they're running 32 land decks. As for color fixing, I really like the lands that enter tapped and let you choose a second color. While they are a bit annoying to keep track of, their flexibility is fantastic if you're playing 3 or more colors on a budget. You can also of course just use guild gates. Guild gates are insane. The guild package is crazy powerful if you're willing to commit a couple of card slots to it. By relying on these lands over the more traditionally powerful ones, we can save ourselves a huge chunk of money as well, which we can then responsibly spend on very specific niche cards that can only be played in a single deck. I really dislike that lands are so expensive in Magic. Lands are the foundation of the game, and I find it discouraging when I am looking at what kind of mana bases people are using and it's $200. I remember being a new player, seeing that and thinking to myself, I'm never going to be able to afford that because I need to spend $200 on the mana base and then I don't even have any cards to play with. That's frustrating, and it isn't entirely true. As I said, I think it's totally possible to build cheap, effective mana bases. But I also think, I don't know, do we need to monetize lands that heavily? I don't mind there being expensive cards. I think that's fine. It's a collectible card game. But lands in particular, I feel like should be accessible to the larger player base in a way that they currently aren't. Anyways, setting all of that aside, play bounce lands. They are great. They are cheap, have a nice alternative artwork version, and play well into the social aspects of Commander. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up, I'd definitely appreciate it. This was a bit about lands and a bit about a philosophy of Commander. But hey, I think that's kind of a neat topic as well. Right. Anyways, setting that aside, before I go, I have the Hatsune Miku Secret Lair, the recent one. I got this because I want to give the cards to my wife slowly here and there. I like doing that. Just give her little cards as presents. But we're going to open this right now because I want to test out my new recording setup for my desk. I kind of changed some stuff around and I just want to test it. So we're testing it together. Who knows? Maybe we pull a Snapcaster Mage. All right, here we are. I mean, I'm a Magic channel now, so I guess I should have the option of actually opening stuff on a camera, right? The power of music can warm any heart. Well, isn't that nice? Oh, that's a nice box. I like that. That's very fancy. It is a big box, though. I don't know if we need this much packaging. Okay, and oh, we did not get a Snapcaster Mage. How disappointing. We got a beloved princess. I don't even know if you can get the Snapcaster Mage like that. I've seen a couple of people get it here and there, but I don't think we actually know the intricacies of that yet, right? Oh, okay. I guess I'm not open. There we go. We have done it. We have successfully opened the plastic packaging. Here we go. So, here's our Miku Font of Pop, which is the Giada. We've got a youthful Valkyrie, just another angel thing. Counterspell, which I kind of want the counterspell, to be honest. Maybe I can convince my wife to give it to me after I give it to her. Then we've got the Swan Song. Oh, I like this one. Oh, these are actually really pretty. These are really nice foils. And then Miku Queen Electric. This is also a card that I'm excited for. I like the art a lot. I think it's very nice. They did a great job with the foiling on these. It's not always a given that the foils look nice. I think more often than not, they actually kind of do a pretty lazy job with them. But I think in this particular case, they actually really nailed it. And then finally, scrying sheets, which is cute. I have to say my favorite here has to be the Miku Queen Electric. That's very good. And then we have one last card in its own separate packaging for inexplicable reasons. Here we go. Very good. That's the beloved princess. Can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. Wow. What an incredible card. Truly, truly worth the special artwork. But I guess with this, it really does not matter, right? I mean, I don't particularly care about the cards being super playable. I just care about having little presents I can give to my wife, and she likes these. Anyways, I'm noticing I'm a little bit too far on the left side for this, but I guess I can like adjust this camera next time I record something like that. Anyway, I wanted to test this. That's it. Goodbye.